Welcome to Technado with Don Pizzette, featuring sysadmin expert Don Pizzette, security specialist Daniel Lowry, and Peter.
Hello and welcome to Technado with Don Pizzette. I'm your host, Peter Van Rysdam, and I am joined by the one and only Don Pizzette. Don, how are you?
I am doing great. Another great episode lined up for us here. We've got a phenomenal guest who's going to be talking about Cisco, and I'm kind of excited about the news. There's not any amazing breakthrough technology, but a whole lot of weird stuff going on in the world of technology.
There's a headline right next to me on the screen that says boiling liquid servers that I cannot wait to get to, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. And Daniel, how are you today?
I'm doing great. It's funny. It must be one of those weird days because right before we started, for whatever reason, the thought of Gremlins 2 and the female gremlin and how she had all the lipstick and the fake wig and everything on, that image just popped in my head right before we started for whatever reason.
And that's the character you're going to portray this episode?
Absolutely.
It's disturbing. It's very disturbing. And we are joined also, we've had a lot of Cisco guests recently, and we have yet another one this week. It is Utkarsh Srivastava, who is joining us all the way from India. How are you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing great. Good morning, gentlemen. How are you guys doing?
We are great, and we're excited to talk Cisco yet again. And you have a pretty interesting background and a lot of stuff going on. So I want to get right into it because I want to find out how you have time for all the stuff that you do. So let's jump in with our first segment, rapid fire questions.
Who do you work for?
What's new?
Who are you?
What's happening?
What's wrong with you?
All right, Utkarsh, in our first segment here, we're going to rapid fire questions at you. You will have approximately 1 minute to answer each. You'll see a little counter appear on your screen. If it reaches 0, you will get buzzed by Peter, something like this. There we go. And then we'll move on to the next question. Our first question is going to come at you from Peter, and then we'll rotate through each of us from there.
So your role at Cisco is listed as network consultant, but it sounds pretty complicated based on some of the things that you're working on. So can you tell us a little bit about what it is that you do for Cisco right now?
Yeah, so that's the best part about Cisco. It gives you so many opportunities even within a specific domain to work upon. So in my current role, I'm responsible for driving multiple automation initiatives within the organization. And I also play a pivotal role in conducting periodic business reviews with customers by defining and tracking their outcome-oriented KPIs and in the planning of their contract renewals and business upsells. Also within the organization, my corpus of work extends from incorporation of network automation capabilities and network analytics in general.
Now, artificial intelligence, machine learning, those are huge buzzwords right now. I think people getting into technology right now, starting their career, look at that and say, all right, that's a career I can move forward in. But I know you've been doing this for a little while, so you kind of got in before it really became popular. What was your path there? Like, what got you into AI and ML?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really smart question, by the way. You asked multiple questions within one. So, so since beginning, I had this analytical bent and curiosity towards data and insights. So I was mostly intrigued by the fact that, how data analytics and ML/AI frameworks can, help in transforming whether it be digital finance, healthcare, operational management, and whatnot. And, I pursued this path, and later on, I went on to study about the big data frameworks like Hadoop and Spark as well. And, got an opportunity to even author a couple of books on big data and cloud computing, and which in turn got me opportunities to deliver multiple tech talks as well on global forums like Google, Sweden, and Cisco, IEEE, etc. So yeah, it has been an interesting journey, and Cisco has been a great support in this journey.
Well, I'm glad to see that you're, just wasting your time with all that stuff. So. And speaking of your time, I understand you spend a bit of it doing some mentoring. It would be interesting to hear, how did you get into that? What does that look like for you?
So I would say this goes back to 2000, I guess. So that was a really pathetic year for me. I lost my mom at that year, and I was just 6 years old. And that's how early I was exposed to the worldly realities. So me and my dad and family members, had to go through a lot of social and financial issues and whatnot. But personally, I never gave up. And, eventually I found some amazing mentors at most stages of my life. So, that's how I try to give back to the society in my little possible ways. of mentoring and supporting. So currently, I'm part of an NGO where I where I teach the underprivileged kids through online portals, and then I develop the training modules and contents for them as well. And I also, train developers and business communities on the data technologies and its implementation in their organizations.
Well, that's a great way to pay it forward there. So I appreciate that. And one of the things that you do also to kind of share your knowledge is you have your own podcast, the Inspirational Leaders Podcast. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Is it just specific to IT and the things you're working on, or is it just general leadership?
Oh yeah, it definitely goes beyond the IT boundaries. So in my opinion, leadership is an art. I mean, which knows no boundaries. It can be possessed and exercised at any age and at any front in any form. So I have multiple shoots lined up till early June with leaders from multiple industry sectors, and hopefully I can provide some thoughtful content for my audience.
Now, I want to kind of circle back real quick to the AI ML discussion because it's something that does pique my interest a little bit. So now that I've got you here in front of me, I want to ask you the question. It seems like it might take a whole string of different higher math degrees to get into AI and ML. Is that just a misnomer? Am I just overreading the situation? Is it a lot simpler than that, or is that just kind of the landscape of it?
No, I think that's the most commonly perceived conception out there in public. So there are two aspects to it. I mean, if you see it from a perspective of understanding the problem statement and how you come up with solutions for that, there is one aspect of it which doesn't require any technical expertise. Let's say for tons of codes or statics and algebra and whatnot. But if you see the other part of it where you are actually implementing those processes and models, you need to have those technical expertise to write those codes and test those models and come up with the performance issues and evolution of those models. So those are the two aspects of it, and it depends on which one you are part of.
I still wouldn't recommend it for you.
No. Higher math degrees for me is like after 5th grade. So
yeah,
I'm good.
I've seen you try to calculate the tip at a restaurant.
So you take money, right?
You can't divide by 0? What?
Whose dumb idea was this?
Well, just in talking to you there in those 5 minutes, I mean, we heard buzzwords like machine learning, AI, big data. I don't think we got into blockchain, but I saw that was on some of your your history there. But I think it's the perfect segment to go into our next one, which is buzzword breakdown.
Success.
Virus.
Server.
POP3.
Password.
Cyber bullying.
Say what?
All right, so you wrote a blog post over at blogs.cisco.com under the analytics and automation section called Ethics of Artificial Intelligence. And I didn't know that there were ethics in artificial intelligence, but I'm basing that on the Terminator movies franchise where they just kind of went crazy. But can you give us kind of a little bit of an overview of what this blog post is about and what you were trying to get across with this?
Sure, absolutely. And that's the most common perception out there in public as well, ethics, and that too in artificial intelligence. And people say, what bullshit, what are you talking about? Let's get artificial intelligence implemented and later we'll talk about the ethics part of it. But let's take a step back and try to see what is basically artificial intelligence meant to, or what is it intended to achieve? As a generic definition, if you go by the definition, it says that it is a simulation of human intelligence on machines that is programmed to think like humans and mimic their actions. Now, just hold on your thoughts for a second and just think about this question. What is the probability that these machines won't harm humans or other morally relevant beings in future? Does that scare you? Does that ring a bell?
Yes.
Yes.
And again, that's only based on movies. I think it was iRobot was the one where they talked about the rules, like the first
thought
rule.
about Silicon Valley, where Guilfoyle had created an AI, and it started deleting their code because he told him find the bugs and delete the bugs in the code, and it came up with the answer of there's no way to delete the bugs without deleting the code, so I must delete the code.
Smart. Yeah.
And it would do that to us.
Well, and in terms of these rules, I think of AI and ML as a fairly new technology, but Isaac Asimov wrote his rules for iRobot. That was back in the 1950s, I think he wrote that. Yeah. So people have been thinking about this for a while.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the reason, I mean, most of these organizations have started to talk about this. And even if you type on your favorite search engine, right, greatest leaders of all time, just try to analyze the results which you get. The list of the search results which you get is mostly, the world's most prominent male personalities. So, what could be the reason that, we have a lower count on the women side of it, especially the frameworks of AI and ML needs to address these issues and, try to mitigate the gender biases. And not only this, this has been supported by studies from MIT as well, where a couple of professors have conducted these research and tried to come up with a survey results as well as conclusions from these studies, stating that there are a lot of biases which are being created by these AI frameworks. So it has multiple industry use cases it ranges from context-aware marketing to sales forecasting, conversational AI, and it is also used in credit scoring, drug testing, pregnancy monitoring, self-driving cars. It's a never-ending list, right? So considering what is the importance of these technologies and how varied these use cases are, it's high time that we start talking about it, and we start coming up with frameworks where these things can be implemented at the grassroots level, so that we ensure that we don't end up in a situations like you just recited about in the movies as well, right? So that was the thought process behind this blog post.
So, I have a few AI ethical issues because
a few.
All right. So we have the Amazon Echoes in the house and you talk to them and I don't think of them as sentient beings or anything. So I've berated mine on a few occasions and said things you wouldn't necessarily say to a human being. So, and my oldest son had come to me with a genuine concern one day about do we need to be afraid of robots? And I said, well, let me show you how afraid you should be. Let's ask Siri a question. And then she came back with a nonsensical answer. And I'm like, if this is your enemy, I think you're going to be okay. But there's got to be some point where we reach a level where AI becomes like an actual, I don't want to go all out like sentient or whatever, where you need to behave and be nice to it.
Well,
right?
and then there's also, I'd heard that, I don't know if it was Google or somebody had created a couple of AI personalities, I guess, to encrypt messages. And they said, and then they have a third one that's trying to decrypt the messages. And they said, your job is to make sure that this third one can't read the messages. And they ultimately created an encryption even we couldn't decrypt. And they were like, we have to shut this off because if they keep going, they'll be able to send messages.
Exactly.
I think I saw
know what they're saying.
That was a Jamie Foxx movie, right?
Yeah.
It was
It's another movie.
That was real.
Well, so you have there's 5 points in here, kind of a checklist in the blog post you wrote. Are those kind of your suggestions for kind of a beginner's approach to getting in there and understanding the ethics?
Oh yeah, definitely. See, so each of these AI models, they have a performance metrics, and until unless we have a tracking mechanism to say that, what are the success metrics, how are we ensuring about data privacy, and how are we trying to incubate the fairness testing as well in the model right at the development phase, because being in the tech world, right, we are more concerned about what is the accuracy of our model, what is the precision of our model, how well it is performing, but we never bother to give a thought about the fairness testing. So how fair is it producing the results or judging the outcomes compared to what a human would have done at the same situation, right? So it's more of incorporating the moral values as well, and trying to come up with solutions which are more ethical at that point of time, considering the perspectives of individuals as humans as well, and then evaluating these performances over a period.
Are most AIs, when they do program some sort of ethics system into them, are they moral relativists or are they absolute moralists?
Currently, as we speak, we do see a scarcity in that phase, because it's more about how precise your model is and how accurate the results are coming. But that's something which we need to think about and start incorporating them.
It was just a couple of years ago that Microsoft ran into this with their Cortana, right? If you Google the headline, Cortana is a racist.
Right.
So they had released it with the model, and people found where if they interacted with it a certain way, they could make it start to act racist. And they got it saying some really awful things. Yeah. So that was just maybe 2 or 3 years ago. Utkarsh, you've been in the industry this time. So have you seen a lot of progress since then, or is it still an uphill battle?
Oh yeah, definitely there's progress, but so that's what I mentioned earlier as well. Considering the wide use cases of these technologies in across multiple industry sectors, we need to up the pace. So that's all about it. We need to up the pace, considering the fact that what kind of varied use cases it have. So definitely there has been progress, but yeah, there's much more we can bring to the plate.
Yeah, there was another one like that where it was a Twitter bot where it did the same thing. They had to take it off because it was learning from the people it was interacting with, and that's a bad thing.
Enough of this.
I think the key takeaway here is that Don
People
needs to
are
go
terrible.
home. No, Don needs to go home and apologize to his Alexa because when the robots do come for us, and they will,
They're coming after you first.
And my prescription medications.
yeah, they will remember how you treated them. And
Don
so,
is dead.
I like to think your son goes over and apologizes after you. Be like, Alexa, he doesn't mean it. He's sorry about it.
After the show, I'll tell you some of the things I said and the witty responses that it had.
Oh, see, it's learning to. That would be a nice setting that you could tell it. You know what? You can give me a little snark back, Alexa. That's fine. I don't mind.
It's just playful ribbing.
Yeah, some playful ribbing. So we talked about the podcast a little bit ago, the Inspirational Leaders podcast. So where can people find that? It's just is that on all the Apple Podcasts and Google Play and all those places?
Yeah, it's available on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and a couple of other major ventures. So yeah, it's there. It's out there.
Fantastic. And I've got the website for that one here as well. Well, we'll put that link in the it's a long link, so I'll put that in the description for people to take a look at. And then you're also working on a book as well. Can you tell us a little bit about that project?
Oh yeah. So on the lines of these podcast show as well, which is on the topic of inspirational leadership, right? So I'm currently engaged with a couple of publishers to come up with a book on art of leadership. So it's a work in progress, and it will soon be launched on Amazon Kindle, and even the hard copies also would be available for the sale. So but I still think that you might ask me that why leadership itself. I mean, what is the drive behind that? So the thought process behind this was that, in my opinion, in the current era of brand marketing and branding, we have more influencers out there compared to inspirational leaders and role models. So I personally have been lucky enough to have known few such leaders who really understood leadership and its core building blocks, and I've been involved with them on a couple of engagements. And another important aspect of leadership is empowerment, and especially with this current pandemic situation, this can't be stressed upon more than ever enough. And that's the part which is more often than not sidelined a bit. And I've tried to illustrate this in my book as well with a couple of real life correlations. So yeah, I mean, these have been the driving factors towards my current engagement about the podcast and the upcoming book.
I promise that was my next question. I was going to ask that. So thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. We really appreciate. I know it's late there, so thanks for getting on with us. And I think we learned a lot about AI and machine learning and all the stuff you're working on. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, and next time we have some big AI news or something, we will definitely reach out. But we're going to take a quick break right now, and then we're going to come back with the news. So stay tuned for more Technado with Don Pizzette coming up right after this.
The IT Pro TV app is available for iOS and tvOS. The modern user interface makes navigation easy. Recently watched videos can be found on the home screen, as well as our daily live streams. Choose landscape mode for larger viewing. Access the entire course library by clicking on the play icon. Navigate our content by category, certification, and job role. Learn where you want and when you want as a premium annual member by downloading episodes for offline viewing. Watch on the go and pick up later on any of your favorite devices. So head to the App Store and download the IT Pro TV app.
All right, welcome back to Technado with Don Pizzette. Thank you so much to Utkarsh for joining us there and teaching us so much about what Don has done to disrespect the robots in his life, and they are upset.
You know, I I don't know what the word for it is. Like, you know, if you can be racist against a certain race. What is it if you are anti-robot?
That's a good question.
Because I feel that I am a little
Oh, yeah, you
anti-robot.
totally are.
Yeah.
You're an anti-dentite.
Anti-dentite.
Next, you'll be saying they should have their own schools.
20 years from now, I'll be on Maury Povich's show, and
Yeah.
he'll be a robot.
You'll have like a robot kid, and
Yeah.
I don't think he
Robot
loves me.
Maury.
Robot more.
My dad hates robots. What should I do?
He can do the DNA test like that.
Yeah. He doesn't approve of my robot marriage.
Oh God. Yeah. This could get bad real quick.
Yeah.
Hey, speaking of get bad real quick, next week is our 200th episode. Did you guys know that?
What?
Yeah. And we are celebrating
haven't
with
shut us down yet?
a YouTube. No, they haven't. The FTC hasn't heard about this one yet. They only shut down if you have more than 10 viewers. That's when they get on the radar. And
Maybe
they
next
review you.
time.
Yeah, we'll get there. But next week we're going to be on YouTube Live to live record the show before we put it out, and it will be on Thursday, the 22nd of April at 2 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time. Going to have giveaways, T-shirts, stickers. I got the. Hold on. Got the new sticker sheet there with all the I heard it on Technado with Don Pizzette, and I get my news from Technado with Don Pizzette.
I gave mine to
there.
my little girls. They love them.
Perfect.
They got them all over their bed.
You cut out the little cows and stuff and put them on there. Oh, we're
Yeah.
zooming in.
Oh, there it
Yeah.
is.
Check
Give
that
the people
out.
what they
The
want.
people listening on audio, it's a sticker.
Actually, I think Courtney was zooming in on your horrible nail care.
I know. Yeah, my manicure issues there. I'll get that taken care of before the live show.
You should.
Of course. But yeah, check that out. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're also giving away an IT Pro TV membership, a 1-year membership. So that'd be cool. Oh, and I didn't even mention we got Network Chuck as our guest guest appearance next
I've
week.
heard of that guy.
Yeah, me too.
He's on the YouTubes. Isn't
He's
he?
on. Yeah, he's on the internet.
He's an influencer.
So it must be.
He has
Yeah,
5 Ferraris.
yeah. He's
He has
gonna
5 Ferraris.
he's gonna talk about his detox
Yeah,
tea.
how does that work? These people are making money, so much money.
Yeah, because they're like fighting
Or they already
Floyd
have
Mayweather.
a bunch of
and
money, and then they said, I'm just going to make a YouTube channel and show people my 5 Ferraris.
That's the way you do it.
I heard it's a Google program where they just give you the Ferraris, but then you have to jump one Ferrari with the other
I
Ferrari
can
for a
do that.
video. And
I can do that. Google, hit me up.
All right, so the news
jump
this
that
week. Lots of great news. Our first article comes to us from tomshardware.com. Microsoft uses boiling liquid to cool data centers. Now, is this an accident? Was this a mistake? Did they turn on the red handle instead of the blue?
No, so this is a specific design, and I thought the headline had to be wrong in the beginning, but once I read it, it actually does make sense. Many of you have probably seen submerged computers before, right? So it used to be kind of a hobbyist thing that you could take a aquarium, fill it up with mineral spirits, and is that right? Yeah, mineral spirits, right?
Yeah, because it's non-conductive.
Or is it mineral oil?
Oil.
Oil.
It's oil.
There we go.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, check before you dip your computer.
People are dumping mineral spirits in their computer right
It's like paint thinner, right?
Damn you, Don Pizzette.
You can fill it up with mineral oil, and then you could actually stick your motherboard in there while it was powered on, and the system would run just fine, submerged in mineral, because it was non-conductive, and it didn't damage the electronics. Well, I mean, you never actually really are able to get it clean after that, but once it's in there, it's fine. And you could run the computer that way, and it would stay super cool because all the heat the computer generated was being dissipated into the oil. So that's been around a long, long time. I think I saw that the first time probably 20 years ago. But what Microsoft has done is taken it a step further, and they have created a secret liquid, which they're not revealing the formula for. But basically, it is a non-conductive boiling liquid with a really low boiling point.
Oh, see, that's why. So I'm thinking water
it's a
originally.
really low boiling point, guys.
So this
boiling.
one boils at 122 degrees Fahrenheit. Normal water boils at something like 210,
212.
Yeah.
212. So it boils at a way lower number, right? So when your processor reaches that heat, it boils the liquid around the processor, which turns it into vapor. And the heat, even if it doesn't turn to vapor, the heat is going to go up to the top of the tank where they have a chiller at the top to cool it back down again. So heat is constantly moving away from the components, which allows it to cool really, really fast. So it's a pretty neat solution they've come up with. We'll learn more about it over the next few years. But the reason they're doing it is we have this thing called Moore's Law. Have you guys heard of Moore's Law?
Yeah.
Where processors are supposed to reduce by size in half every couple of years. But eventually there comes a point where the transistors in a processor become as small as they're going to get. And I think it was last year or the year before, they released transistors that were the size of an atom. And
That's small.
That's
hard
probably
to
the
get
smallest
smaller
we're
than
gonna get, yeah.
And so what's going to happen is when you can't get any smaller, you have to add more cores. More cores mean more heat, and more heat needs to be dealt with. And so Microsoft is looking for creative ways to deal with that.
This is a creative way to deal with that. You got to be careful, though. You don't want to stick this next to your fish tank and then be feeding your computers fish flakes. That would be a problem.
Yeah, unless you maybe bred some kind of special fish that could live in there.
Oh, I thought you meant bread, like put breading on the fish, because then you can dip it in the oil.
I meant more like
delicious.
genetic.
Make your own fish sticks. I don't think that's how this works. But here's my question.
Bread.
Now, bear with me here. If I've got boiling liquid,
Yeah.
and it is boiling, turning into vapor, and that's coming to the top, that's producing a steam of sorts. Now, can I
Then
grab that
Go above
energy back and put that back into power the computer?
Oh, so not the energy piece, but it is a enclosed system. So the hot liquid or steam goes to the top where it's cooled, and so then it becomes a liquid again and sinks back down. So it is a closed cycle. Which is nice. You don't have to add more liquid to it. I mean, I'm sure you lose some over time, but it really retains it. But you're not able to convert that to actual energy. Maybe you can, right? But it would be very inefficient.
Well,
I
I'm
think.
guessing
Yeah,
that
you'd be using more
the
than
cooling
you-
system itself in the tank that's cooling the oil is taking up energy as well, but nowhere near as much as traditional fan cooled.
That's what they indicate was that for a data center compared to things like the chillers that we use in data centers, this consumes way less energy.
Did they give any kind of numbers or just way less?
No,
Was their
total
official?
top secret. Nothing.
Yeah,
like
when you
that.
said submerged, I thought you were talking about because it was Microsoft that had that tank basically where they submerged
ocean,
things in the North Atlantic somewhere. But now imagine if you
The
filled that up
underwater data
with the same
centers.
liquid. That could be super efficient.
But
maybe.
that, I wonder. I'd like to see a comparison between those two because it's like super cold at the bottom of the ocean. So you stick all these data centers at the bottom of the ocean. You don't have to worry about cooling. You just let the things run, and the ocean cools it. It's kind of the same idea, I guess.
Yeah.
But it's just in a more. It seems more practical to do it that way than develop all these oils.
And with that one, they had 1,000 servers that were in that sort of a submarine, but like a capsule, and they just planned on hardware dying and not getting it back. And so they
with
plan
this,
on,
you can actually reach in and
because it
change
would be
the
right
module,
there in your data center. You could position it wherever you wanted.
Well, this article has shown me how little I know about thermodynamics. So I've got some reading to do. All right, our next article is also about Microsoft and comes to us from arstechnica.com. Microsoft acquires Nuance, makers of Dragon speech recognition, for $16 billion. And I think it said this is Microsoft's second largest deal in terms of cash. But what does this mean for people like us as Microsoft users? We're going to see built into Word now?
Well, it's hard to say. Maybe. So Microsoft already has a lot of speech-to-text technology with Cortana and their investment they've made there.
Yeah.
So a lot of people are saying that Microsoft doesn't actually want the Dragon technology or Nuance's technology, that instead they want their customer base, right? Because this software is used in hospitals all across the world, really especially heavily here in the United States. Medical transcriptionists use it. So this is like an instant in for Microsoft in pretty much any medical environment. So that's how a lot of people are looking at this. The article says that 77% of U.S. hospitals already use this software. But we might see it. It does actually work really well. Like if you've ever done not just talking to Cortana, but dictated an email into Outlook or Word, it's not perfect, right? It has flaws as far as like what's built into Microsoft's OS already. So I could see them integrating Dragon Naturally Speaking or whatever it's called into the system. I have to say whatever it's called because there's a whole sad story attached to this. You guys know the sad story of Dragon?
No.
So it was founded by a couple. The wife's name was Janet. I can't remember the husband's name, but Baker was the last name. So Janet and her husband, they created this company, Dragon, and the original program was called Dragon Speak Naturally.
I thought it was Naturally Speaking.
So it became that later on, right? And they grew that company from nothing. And in 2000, they were acquired for it was something like $800 million in stock, which that's
That's
a
pretty
lot of money.
good, yeah.
$800 million in stock in another company. And that other company turns out had fraudulent bookings.
Sweet.
They had reported all these sales in Asia that didn't exist and overnight became worthless. And so they ended up just they were able to sell some stock and get a few $1 million, and that was it. They were out. And so, they got $3-5 million, something of that nature. Meanwhile, Microsoft just paid over $16 billion for it, and the Bakers are, not getting any of that. So it's kind of sad.
Yeah.
Yeah, I played this ad. I was waiting to play. I wasn't sure if it was like a really tragic story in terms of like people were killed or something.
They
so-
didn't die, but
Yeah.
I mean,
I
their
didn't wanna make
dream,
light of
their
it.
creation
I mean,
was
they only had a couple of $1 million.
yeah,
You know,
yeah, but
it's not a horrible. I mean, that's a first world problem, but I
But it's no
understand
16 billion.
And the relatively for how much money this is now selling for and how much money they made off with. Yeah, that's a little on the unfair side, but
Yep.
that's so it goes.
That's
I
business.
guess. Yeah,
that's why you never accept all stock.
that's right. That's right. I want some cash on the barrelhead
Yeah.
here, buddy.
Well, it'll be interesting to see what Microsoft does with this, and I'm sure we'll watch for that recently. I mean, I know last week we talked about them shutting down Cortana on mobile devices, so hey, maybe it comes back and sounds like a dragon now.
You know, they did have the Dragon app for Android for a little while. Who knows? Maybe they'll bring that back.
We shall see. All right, well, our next article comes to us from Wired.com. What really caused Facebook's 500 million user data leak? The company's explanations have been confusing and inconsistent, shocking, but there are finally some answers. So I assume the answers didn't come from them. Did a third party get in there and take a look at what happened?
So third parties are starting to string together bits and clues to try and figure this out. So, Facebook, there's a few challenges here, and they have not released any real details on this. So all we have is a vague statement that says back in 2019, there was an incident, a bug in their API that allowed one vendor to be able to get in there and be able to scrape data out. And actually, I don't think it was a vendor. I think it was an external organization or an entity that was able to get in and do this. And they were able to do things like pull public information from millions of profiles, and they were able to use the password reset mechanism to be able to figure out people's phone numbers through the password reset system. So there were a few different things that happened that went to creating this huge database. Now, Facebook knew about it. They patched the flaw and even made a mention of it back in 2019 saying, oh, yeah, we found this little problem. We patched it. No big deal. No bigs. Don't worry about it. They didn't do any notification. And then here we are in 2021 where that database of information that was harvested has been posted publicly online where anybody can get at it. And now people are looking back at that 2019 announcement and saying, wait a minute, you said this wasn't a big deal, but here's all the data. What's up with that? Well, that's, obviously a security issue. We talk about those on the show all the time. But this one has some bigger ramifications. In 2018, GDPR took effect, right? So those are the privacy regulations that are a part of the EU. And Facebook is wrapped up under that because they store data on EU citizens. And there's that kind of data inside of this data dump that's happened. And according to the GDPR, you have to do a notification of a breach within 72 hours. And you need to notify the people that were affected. Well, Facebook's had 2 years now, and they haven't notified even the privacy regulators. And they've said they don't intend to notify the users because they think this information is non-sensitive and public, and that's it. So I feel like the EU has just been waiting for an opportunity to wallop Facebook with a record-setting fine, and this is setting us up for it. This is going to be a billions upon billions of dollars. Like they built the penalty for Facebook.
I did the math. I think it's going to be right around $4 billion.
Because it was $20 million or 4% of your revenue, whichever is greater.
Yearly, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, whichever is greater. And
that would be about $4 billion?
They were like $86-something billion a year revenue from what I could find. And then, you do the math on that, and it rolls around right around $4 billion.
Although, honestly, if you hit them with a $4 billion fine, they just pay it.
Yeah,
and
they
go
just
on.
keep going.
Yeah, they're like, do you want cash?
I mean, who gets that money is the question. Who gets the $4 billion, and then what do they get to use it for?
Oh, the EU regulators.
Oh,
It's just like in the U.S.
Stick it in their pocket and go home, like, man.
So that happens here in the U.S. all the time, right? So like when there's a monopoly suit, when Microsoft had to pay that fine for the monopoly lawsuits back in the 90s, they ended up having to pay, it was a few $100 million, if I recall correctly. And that didn't go to the competitors they quashed, right? It didn't go to Novell or whoever else.
Government.
It goes to the government, yeah.
Yeah, and their team meeting next year was in Acapulco. the regulators, they had a nice time.
Regulators,
mount up, guys. We're going to Acapulco. So
that's why they're able to make that music video.
That's right.
So the question is now, the UK is out of the EU. Would they still get a little taste? Because this would have happened.
Well,
they're hiring these hackers to do this so they get that GDPR money.
So the UK has their own set of privacy regulations, which pretty much match GDPR. So there is something they could do. But because this infraction happened while they were under the EU, that's where that's going to happen. And I doubt they'll get a taste. We'll have to see.
Yeah, because then that would be in pounds.
Yeah.
And that's a
Yeah,
whole different
crazy.
math.
This is a whole different thing. You're right.
To figure that out. Well, that's a mess. So I'm sure we'll hear more about that one as that comes out, and maybe this is the one that finally shuts down Facebook. All right, our next article is actually one of my favorites from the Behind Bars segment, and let's go ahead and play that intro.
The law, and you'll go to jail.
You just take that iPad
Yeah.
and throw it in the river.
We use Bluetooth. We use Bluetooth for that. Well, we used to have a Bluetooth receiver like duct taped to the side of a desk over there because it was like behind all this stuff, and there's all the other computer paraphernalia back there.
Yeah.
But I'm assuming that moved. Yeah. Anyhow, this one is from the record.media. They paid for that .media domain.
It's important.
Good for them. By the way, I was looking at Technado URLs the other day, and there's some great extensions that I think we should pick just because they have nothing to do with Technado.
.museum.
Yeah, Technado.museum. Let's do it. All right, this article is U.S. arrests suspect who wanted to blow up AWS data center. And, that's, it's funny, but it's not funny because we talk about what happened in Nashville a few months back, and that was an AT&T center that this could have been a very similar situation.
Yeah, I think we are moving into a new era of domestic terrorism. So last year we had the incident where people were attacking 5G towers. So, that would take out cell phone reception in an area. But then with Nashville, that was a bigger deal. So this was a IT worker who was targeting an AT&T facility because they knew they could take down a portion of the internet, and they were successful. It worked, right? So now other people are looking at that and saying, what can we target? And this person, Seth Aaron Pendley, 28-year-old from Wichita Falls, decided he was going to do that he was going to target AWS. Now, if you go to Amazon's AWS website, it will tell you that they have regions, right? Data centers that are all over the place and multiple data centers in certain regions. Those are the availability zones. And their biggest one is in Virginia, up by D.C. But they don't tell you the address, right? It's a secret. And if you were to drive by the building, there's no signage on it. It doesn't say, welcome to Amazon US East 1 or anything like that.
A really big cable running into the side, though, I imagine.
Well, they look like big tan warehouses, except they have cement walls instead of metal walls. But it's kind of like the worst kept secret in IT, that if you go onto Google Maps and pan around inside of Google Maps and poke around the areas, you can actually spot the buildings. They're even labeled as being owned by Amazon because they don't hide that part. So you can figure out where they are. And so this guy said, all right, well, AWS is now hosting websites for the FBI and other organizations, right? So Amazon has the Gov Cloud, which is just for government services. And so he decided he was going to blow one up, which honestly would probably take down a decent portion of resources. Now, the U.S. government is a little bit free with their cash when it comes to building solutions, so a lot of redundancy is likely there. I don't think this would have been an effective attack if he had pulled it off, but fortunately they were able to find him and arrest him before he could do anything, and AWS stays up another day.
Yeah, but definitely these are, there's a lot of computers and hardware at these situations, but there's also people, security techs and things like that.
How did they find this guy?
Oh, so this guy was already on the radar. He was actually at the Capitol riots back on January 6th. In fact, they even mentioned it in here that he took his assault rifle with him, but he left it in the car for the riot, which, he's probably like, I forgot it in the car, but I don't want to go all the way back in the parking
Whatever,
garage.
just take a podium.
So this guy was already on the radar. He had been posting on some websites.
Was he that guy?
He was the shaman.
Yeah, how is this not Florida man? Too?
This one was from Texas, but he is now facing up to 20 years in a federal prison. After seeing Office Space, it's hard to not say.
So again, I'm still confused. So he was on their radar. How did they find this guy? So he tried to acquire C4 plastic explosives. I've yet to see any kind of puzzle piece that comes
at the very
together.
bottom. There's a quote that says, this from the acting U.S. attorney. It says, "We're indebted to the concerned citizen who came forward to report the defendant's alarming online rhetoric." So, see something, say something. If you see people
talking about blowing stuff up.
Yeah,
and he was posting on a website called mymilitia.com.
Okay.
Which
There you go.
apparently is monitored. And
I was going to say, who's the citizen who's going, yeah, I'm on the militia side, sure, but I'm,
And he was
this
stating,
is too far.
and these are the quotes, he was basically saying that he had plans to conduct a little experiment that would draw a lot of heat, and it could be dangerous and cause death. So he had signaled basically that he was planning something.
Caused, yeah. He's not a criminal mastermind, are we talking about here, are we?
Yeah, well, what are you going to do?
It's nice when they write the evidence down for the court.
Evil master plan.
Signed, Kitten Lover 420.
That's
All
right. Why am I putting a dot of blood on this? I don't know.
So you might be wondering, what does this mean for IT professionals? So let's bring this back to our wheelhouse here. It means that while cloud services are great and they do have a lot of redundancy and some of the best infrastructure and engineers working to create them, they are susceptible to really whacked out terrorists like this. And so that is another reason for you to use multiple regions when you deploy. Not multiple AZs. Availability zones are in the same city. Do multi-region. So with AWS, you might do US East and US West, or they have them in Texas now, and Ohio, I think, is the other area.
If he was really smart, what he would have done was become a coder, get hired at AWS, put in like a wrong DNS information, and then bam, just like Microsoft, your whole system comes crashing down, and you didn't have to kill anybody to do it.
Yeah, but it was only down for a couple hours.
Whatever.
I think
You get your point across, right?
But to your point, with the redundancies in place, the other zones would be picking stuff up.
Yeah. It's something we have to plan for, though, right? So if you deploy in AWS, you're not multi-region by default. It's up to you to be multi-region. So it's where we implement control over our deployment.
By the way, I looked it back up. The domain I wanted to get was technado.apartments. I thought that'd be a good one. It's $70
$70
a year, but we'll start
little steep.
We'll start a GoFundMe.
Yeah. Get a Kickstarter going.
See if we can get it. All right, our next one is actually a Deja news. So let's roll that.
Deja
News.
Hey, it worked. They must have taped the Bluetooth receiver back up out there.
Squeaky wheel gets the grease,
It's-
right?
It's a real tight ship we're running here, guys. All right, this one is from externals.io, another fun domain. This is an update on the git.php.net incident that we talked about. That was just last week, right? Where
Just
we talked
last week,
about some things getting into PHP's code that could affect billions and billions of websites, if I recall.
Billions. So,
Billions.
you know how Facebook has this breach that they're not really acknowledging and saying it's not a big deal?
I heard about that.
That's kind of what the PHP team is doing right now. So they reported a breach last week that somebody had pushed some commits to their Git repository and posed as the leader of the PHP project and some other lead developers. So they reset everybody's password. They abandoned their own on-prem local Git system and then redeployed just in GitHub. So they said, this is an unnecessary security risk. Let's use GitHub. Well, now they've come out and said, well, actually, there wasn't a breach. It wasn't a breach like we reported, right? But once they shared the details, they didn't share all the details of how they were breached. So I don't exactly understand why they're claiming that, but basically they felt that somebody had gotten into the actual Git server. But it turns out that they didn't get into the Git server. They just compromise the user credentials of the developers through another database that was exposed. So it was a different kind of breach than the first one. Doesn't really matter, but
I would say at the end of the day, still breach, right?
so what happened was when they were doing their initial research, they normally, when they would push to Git, they would do it via SSH. And so they were checking all the SSH logs, and they only saw legitimate access, and they didn't see the entries for this code that was being pushed in. And so they assumed that meant the attackers had gotten direct access to where the repository stored data. It didn't show up in the logs. They must have bypassed it somehow, right? Well, it turns out after doing a little more research that their Git server was also allowing connections via HTTPS, not just SSH. And that other system was bypassing the software they were using to log all the changes. And so the attackers hadn't directly accessed the server. They were still coming in using these compromised credentials. So it is still a breach. You do still need to reset your passwords. They do still need to use GitHub and not their own Git repository. It's not worth it. But it's just a different breach. So they're retracting what they said last week, but still putting out there that a breach did occur. But I'll tell you, more than half the headlines that I've seen based on this are saying the PHP team says there wasn't a breach. Well, there was. There absolutely was. Credentials were compromised. Database was released. Like, it was still a breach.
Nuh-uh.
That's the evidence against.
Right, see, that's how it works. This is
Yeah.
how you argue now.
Were you on the debate team?
Oh, man.
That was
I'm
good
good
stuff.
at it, right?
Yeah. So not as bad as originally thought.
No, it's still just as bad.
Oh,
yeah,
just as
yeah.
bad.
Just
That
as
sounds
bad.
like something Hitler would say.
Yeah. It's like it was a car accident, 5 people died, but 1 car was a Honda, and then the next week they say, well, actually, it wasn't a Honda, it was a Toyota. That's
yeah.
what this
Fact
is.
checkers got you, Blair.
False. Doesn't mean there wasn't an accident.
Yeah.
Evoking Hitler is another great debate tactic.
Oh, man.
You-
See, I told you. I've got the skills.
You've been in an online forum before, haven't you?
1 or 2.
Now we just need to wait for the one return to end the argument.
You suck.
Your mom.
Oh, yeah. That's a good one.
and that's it. You're like,
man.
well, you got me.
Hey,
It's a burn.
I guess you got me there. Yeah. I concede victory.
Speaking of Hitler, makes me think of we haven't done the milkshake duck
The
segment
milkshake ducks.
in a while.
Got to bring that back.
We got to bring
huh?
that back. We got to
Yeah.
find somebody else that we thought was great. And,
Stupid duck with stupid little mustache.
yeah, a little Nazi duck. All right. Well, our next segment is WTF, and I have turned. I just looked at the volume that I have set for this intro that is super loud. It was set to 7 out of 100. I've set it down to 4. So let's go
Okay.
ahead and give this a try. If you're driving, go ahead and pull over for our WTF segment. It's not as bad.
No, it sounds very quiet.
Almost
Well,
tolerable.
it's lower in our ears,
Yeah.
I think, than it is for the people at home. But
Like, I barely heard that.
hope you
I have
survived
hearing
that.
loss.
That was the goal, because it's really loud. All right, this one, yeah, it pretty much fits that category. It's from the site health.gov.au, so it's the Australian Government Department of Health, I guess kind of the equivalent of the US CDC. And the headline is it true? Can COVID-19 vaccines connect me to the internet? And there's the answer right there, luckily. So, ready for it? COVID-19 vaccines do not and cannot connect you to the internet. Find out more below.
Well, they're not going to cop to
Thanks,
it.
Captain Obvious.
Yeah.
You know, this is sad on multiple levels. Australia, obviously not a third world country.
So
You know,
soon.
they're a player on the world
stage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very many intelligent people there, but just like we have here in the U.S. and the U.K. and every other country, apparently there's some nutbags, and there's a lot of conspiracy theories going around. One that the COVID-19 vaccines contain a microchip from Bill Gates that can help control your brain or
Wouldn't
do
it be
whatever.
Elon Musk at this point, I feel like? I mean, he's more the evil scientist.
Well,
That's
and
kind
plus
of
that's
have
kind of
that
his
vibe.
thing. You know?
Yeah.
But Bill's so into the
vaccines.
and
It's
everything
true,
like
that's
that. I
true.
guess I see where the.
I really feel like Jeff Bezos has the evil villain
Oh,
vibe, though. He's
he
bald.
does.
He's got the suits
Straight
he
up.
wears. Yeah.
And
So
he's
I
got
kind of
spaceships.
like Elon Musk. I know he's got his like weird little problems,
Yeah,
but
he's-
he's working on the whole space program, so he's getting a pass from me right
Who's
now.
the Superman guy? Lex
Lex
Luthor?
Luthor, right?
Yeah,
This
they're saying
is
that's
Jeff
what Jeff
Bezos,
Bezos
right?
is. Yeah.
Totally got that vibe going.
All right. Well, basically, what they're saying is that in some computer chips, they use various chemicals like hydrogels that allow the computer chips to interface with the human body and nervous system to be able to communicate. So we're seeing this used in some bioengineering, prosthetics, and so on. Well, there are hydrogels supposedly in some of these vaccines. Well, the Australian Health Department had to come out and say, well, actually, there aren't any hydrogels in this. That's not what's happening here. It is not something that's allowing you to be interfaced with another computer system or electronic devices or the internet as a whole. But for this to have been prevalent enough for them to put a post on their website means that multiple people believed that they were now being hooked up to a central monitoring system. So the world's a strange place out there.
Is that?
Yeah,
Is that?
if Bill Gates really was, putting internet connectivity into vaccines, wouldn't Africa have like the best and fastest internet right now? Because that's where he's been
He's where
focusing
he's
his
worked
efforts.
mostly, yeah.
And
That's
you
his
don't
test
hear
bed,
about
huh?
that.
Yeah.
You don't hear about that.
No,
So
you
yeah,
don't.
they use a lipid droplet on the mRNA. But here's what's important to note. This article specifically says the Pfizer vaccine does not use hydrogels as a component.
Well, there you go.
So
I
by
got Moderna.
by
It uses
omission,
CRISPR.
yeah, exactly. Now, and I'm assuming that's because each country seems to kind of have their own that they ran with AstraZeneca and a lot of places in Europe, or Johnson & Johnson and Moderna and stuff here. So maybe Pfizer's just the big player down in Australia.
It could be
in terms
Could
of what
be.
they have,
I
or maybe
heard
they're
somebody talking about how there was like a video meme of this guy, and he was like his doctor, and he was getting his COVID shot, and the doctor pulls the needle out, and the guy goes, finally, I've collected all 5. And he's like, what are you talking about? And he's like, I've had all the vaccines. Why be immune when you can be invincible? And then he starts like
that's
force
how it
choking the
works.
doctor or something.
And then he blue screens.
Yeah.
I don't. Yeah, I wonder what that would do. If,
Yeah, don't do that, by the way.
Yeah, don't mix. Don't
Yeah.
get Pfizer for the
This
first
isn't
one.
a
and
COVID
then-
cocktail that you just go.
Well, to get them all, you'd have to get like the Sputnik one from Russia.
And I was reading an article, like they were saying the Chinese one, the efficacy rates are very low on
Yeah.
that too. So you'd
Nice.
have to get that, but apparently it wouldn't do anything.
I guess he just meant the good ones.
Yeah, the top 5.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want some off-brand generic.
Where'd you get this? Canada?
Got it from Bill Gates.
Oh,
With the
hell,
chip.
that'll hook you up to the internet. I need that. I'm gonna be out in the woods for like 16 years all by myself.
But I'm sorry, if you told me that the
I could hook-
vaccine could hook me up to the internet,
I might go for that deal.
like what's the drive? So you're gonna track me like you do with my phone, and with all the, I'm on social
laptop,
media
my
and everything.
TV.
Yeah, but imagine getting pop-ups all day long.
Oh, just in
Right.
your brain.
Well, if they're advertising, yeah, that would suck.
Would it just be like, subconscious? Like all of a sudden, it's like, I don't know why, but I'm craving some Burger King.
Yeah, man, I have got to have a BK broiler.
Like, I'm geolocated. I just passed the Burger King. That must be it.
Okay.
Oh, you're right. Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
I guess we
okay.
got to
I'm
think
with
it
the
all
Australians on this then, I guess.
through. Yeah.
Which Australians? The
The
ones
ones
that
that- yeah,
required
I
the
don't
article to be
know.
made, or the
Okay. Well, that's a sad state of affairs for the world. But, go out and get that vaccine. And
You don't tell me what to do.
Yep. And if you notice any strange internet connectivity after getting vaccinated, be sure to call me on my 5G cell phone. And,
Well, you could just think it, and
Yeah,
it will
it'll-
call down.
Yeah, call Don.
All right. Want to let you know about a webinar coming up from IT Pro TV. It is Going Cloud Native with Linux, moving your Linux workload to the cloud. And that is with Tamika Reed, who, was she a guest on Technado before, or did you talk to her, Don, for another video about
I
living in
interviewed
tech?
her a long time ago, and I think it was for Live Week, wasn't it?
It might have been for Live
Yeah,
Week.
so it wasn't on Technado.
Yeah, but Tamika's great, and we'll be talking about moving your Linux workload to the cloud. That's Thursday, April 29th at 2 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time. So check that out. Go to itpro.tv/webinars, and you can register for that one and see all of the past webinars as well. And while you're on that internet, head over to go.itpro.tv/technado for the last time, because next week we're launching the new Technado website as
we
part
really?
of the 200th episode. So that's exciting.
Technado.apartments.
No, it's actually at angelfire.com /.
Yeah, that's a good one. We'll see if that's still available. That'd be great if like GeoCities just let the domain expire when they
somebody
close, and
grab
now
it.
you can just buy it. Yeah. All right, that's at go.itpro.tv/technado, and you can get a 30% off coupon code for the lifetime of your subscription for your personal plan. You can also find out all the great information available for Teams with a demo for the Teams, and see the Pro Portal, all the great things there. Don't worry, that coupon code will still exist, so you can go ahead and still use that, but be on the lookout for the new site coming soon. Next week, which is our launch of, or not our launch, well, launch of the website, but it's also our 200th episode live. Mentioned Network Chuck going to be joining us, bunch of giveaways, a bunch of fun. Going to have a good time there. You know what we should do? Made me think about it after today. We should play Buzzword Bingo again during that. We used to play that during every episode.
Throw down.
Maybe we bring that back but then Don's going to pick the articles accordingly
Yeah.
and pack it with things that are on his card.
Or we could make a drinking game.
Oh, yeah, that'll be a good show.
You had me at drinking game. I'm going to need an Uber for the way home, but let's do it. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much to Utkarsh for joining us and teaching us all about the AI and the machine learning. And just in this episode, in this time, the machines have learned
We
so
are
much
now
more about us.
experts.
Yeah. No, we haven't learned anything. The machines have.
The machines did it, yeah.
They know all about us now. So, all right, thanks, guys. And we'll see you next week right here on Technado with Don Pizzette.